This conference will now be recorded.
At the end of the today's session, you're going to learn how SAS works. What is the role of the SAS? What are the day-to-day activities of the SAS programmer? So I'm going to simplify all these. So first thing we are going to see basic introduction to SAS. What is SAS? What is the role of the SAS? Next thing we are going to see SAS functionality. Next thing we are going to see SAS functionality, functions of the SAS. Here we are going to learn data flow. In fact, the workflow. In fact, the workflow. Next, we are going to learn SAS program. Next, we are going to learn the SAS program. So introduction, functionality, SAS program, and with a simple example. So with a simple example, simple data, and assigned task. I'll give you one example. I'll give you one task. Using SAS program, how to achieve that task, how to get the result, I'm going to explain. Then, in the next step, I'm going to explain what is the role of SAS in the process of the clinical trial. As we are learning SAS clinical, what is the purpose of using this SAS in the clinical domain with the clinical data? Okay, so these four concepts that we are going to learn. Let us first introduce, let us first learn what is SAS, what is the role of the SAS. SAS is statistical analysis systems. Statistical analysis systems. Okay. Before 1960s, SAS developed in 1960s. Before to that, there was no tool. There was no computer. So there was no computer language. There was no computer language. There was no tool to implement the statistical processes. There was no tool. Before to this, there was no tool to implement the statistical processes. In 1960s, North Carolina University developed the SAS language. SAS is a programming language, like C is a programming language, C++, Java, these are all Oracle SQL. These are all programming languages. Similarly, SAS is also programming language. So what is program? Set of group of statements that we write. Group of statements. What we do here, we write the statements, we write the program to generate the results. We write the program, we execute in SAS, and we'll get the results. So before 1960, there was no tool to implement the statistical processes, statistical implementations. But in 1960s, North Carolina University developed SAS. Initially, it was used to deal with the agriculture data. Initially, it was used to solve the agriculture data related problems. Okay, agriculture data related problems. That means initially it was used in agriculture data. agriculture domain. But now SAS is multi-layered. Initially, it was used only for the agriculture data, but now SAS is multi-layered. So why we call it as multi-layered? As it is used in multiple sectors. SAS is used in banking, finance. It is used in clinical domain, healthcare. Healthcare is different, clinical is different. So used by government, used in oil, gas industries. Okay, so different industries in different sectors, we use SAS. In fact, wherever you require the data analysis, wherever data need to be analyzed, wherever data need to be reported, we use SAS. Wherever your data is complex, to make it easy, to make it easily understand, we use SAS. So SAS is analysis tool. See the name, you can see the name by the name, statistical analysis systems. But SAS is not only used for the analysis, it is also used for the reporting. It is also used for reporting. It is analysis tool, reporting tool. So SAS is multi-layered. Why we call it as multi-layered? It is used in multiple sectors. It is used in multiple sectors, multiple domains. So SAS is also called multi-database architecture. It is also called multi-database architecture. So why we call it as multi-database? It can connect to multiple databases. It can connect to multiple databases, multiple files, external files. So it can connect to external location and it can easily read the data from there. Let me give you example. Let's say we have our data. So the data, that means you are receiving a data from the client. So generally you will be getting the data from your client. So client will give you the data. So client is giving me the data in Excel. So this is Excel. In this Excel, I have data. So this is a Excel. In this Excel, I have data. I would like to read the data from this Excel. I would like to read the data from Excel. SAS will facilitate that read. SAS will use to read the data from the Excel. SAS can easily read the data from Excel. Not only Excel, it can read the data from Access. Even it can read the data from notepads. It can read even data from the other databases like Oracle database, Terabase. So in fact, wherever your data is, SAS can read the data from those files. That's the reason it is called multi-database architecture. So multi-layered, multi-database architecture, and it is also called multi-vendor architecture. So any vendor can use SAS. SAS is easy language. SAS is very easy language, easy programming language. Anyone can use, on any platform we can use. Let's say I'm using SAS on my Windows. So this is Windows machine. This is Windows machine. I can use SAS on Windows. I can use SAS, I can install SAS on Linux. I can even install SAS on Unix. So we can use SAS on multiple machines, multiple platforms. So it is multi-vendor architecture, vendor neutral, platform independent. Any platform. Platform means like Windows, Unix, Linux, mainframes. So any vendor can use. SAS is multifunctional. It has many functions. SAS is multifunctional. It has many functions. Okay. It has many functions. SAS is used for many purposes, many applications. So data integration, okay, data analysis, data reporting, representation, access, data management. For all these, we use SAS. Okay. So mainly out of all those functions, we are going to discuss with the 4 functions. So this is what we call SAS functionality. So with the 4 functions, we are going to discuss with the functionality, and we are going to discuss with the complete workflow of the data in the SAS department. So when data goes to SAS, what exactly SAS programmer has to do? When data goes to SAS teams, within the SAS teams, how the data flows, what will be the workflow within the SAS. So first thing what they do, they need to access the data. So first thing what they do, they need to access the data. Okay. So why do we need to access? Access is nothing but retrieving the data, reading the data. Just now we discussed with the example you can see. So we have data on Excel. This is my Excel. So I'm going to read the data from this Excel. So SAS will facilitate many programs, many statements, many options. Okay, so we can easily read the data from external files. This is external to the SAS, right? I have this raw data set Excel on my desktop. I would like to read this data into SAS. So with the data access, we can do this. So read the data. Which data? Source data, raw data. So this data typically you get from the client. When client is giving you the data, they will not give you directly in the SAS format. They'll give you in Excel, they'll give you in other databases. They'll provide you in different file types. Okay, so we can read the data, read the source data from external files and external locations. Read the source data from external files and locations. Okay, so these locations files may be Excel, so many other files. So what they do, not only reading the data, they'll create SAS dataset. SAS dataset is also called a table. SAS dataset is also called table. So table generally will have rows and columns, right? In table we have rows and columns. Table is nothing but collection of rows and columns. I'll just show you one simple example here. You can see. So we have rows, we have columns, you see. We have two columns. So many rows. So many rows. So two columns, so many rows. So each column is called variable. Each row is called observation. Each column is called variable. Each row is called observation. So that is what the table. So table is collection of rows and columns. It is called SAS Dataset. In Access, what we do, we read the data from Excel. I'm just taking the name Excel. Like Excel, we have many other files also. In fact, other databases also. So I can read the data from Excel. I can create the SAS dataset like this. So that is the first thing that I have to do as a SAS team, SAS programmer. First, I need to read the raw data, source data. So once I get the data into SAS, the next thing what I have to do, data management. Next step, data management. Ultimately, SAS role is to analyze the data. Data analysis. Ultimately, I have to analyze the data. But before analysis, I have to read the data and manage the data. What do you mean by management? Shape the data. Manipulate the data. So that you can get your required data, which is directly used in the analysis. Let's say simple example. I have source data with 1,000 rows. Rows are nothing but observations. I have 1,000 rows and 100 columns. Columns are variables. So I have 100 columns, 1,000 observations, rows. But this is the source data, raw data. From the client, we get this data. But I don't want to use this entire data in the analysis. Analysis always based upon the requirement. So my requirement doesn't need 1,100 data. In the analysis point, I just require only 100 rows, just 5 columns, that's all. In the analysis, I need only 100 rows, 5 columns. So what we do? With the management, we do this. So we shape the data, we refine the data, we mold the data. Okay, so that you can get your required data, which is directly used in the analysis. Because we cannot directly analyze raw data, source data. You may have a lot of data. First, you need to shape the data, so which can be directly used in the analysis. So first thing, you need to read the data. Then you need to refine the data using data management. If you want, you can add the more data. If this data is not required, if some more data to be added, you can add the new data. You can delete the rows and columns. If you have two tables, we can append them, we can update them, we can replace them, we can modify them. There are so many manipulation techniques. Based on the conditions also, we can manipulate the data. so that we can get the required data. So required for what? Required to perform the analysis. So the thing is, what is analysis? As from the starting of the class, we are saying the simple term analysis. What is this analysis? So whenever you have a raw data, you need to convert it into meaningful data. There will be no meaning with the raw data. So based upon the requirement, you need to convert it into meaningful data, meaningful information, proper information. So that anyone, if someone sees the data, they have to able to easily understand the data. Raw data you cannot understand, but analyzed one, simplified one, you can easily understand. So when you have huge data, you need to simplify the data. So in case if your data is complex data, clinical trial data is very complex. If you have complex data, you need to make it conclusive, interpretative data. If your data is complex data, you need to make it conclusive, to the point, nothing but. Let's say if I want to know safety of the drug, your conclusion point is safety. In that way, we need to analyze. So by seeing the table, by seeing the graph, you need to able to understand safety of the drug, whether the drug is safe or not. In that way, we need to analyze. So SAS will provide you a lot of processes to analyze data. Let's say means, summary, univariate. Those are all the statistical processes. ANOVA, t-test, chi-square test, rank, forecasting. So like this, there are so many analysis processes so that we can analyze the data easily. So when you analyze your data will be in the form of tables, listings, figures. So, okay, tables, listing, figures. So it is also called table listing graph. It is also called table listing graph. So table listing figures, table listing graphs. Finally, we are going to generate them. If you take clinical study, every study will require 150 to 180 tables listing figures. In project, we are going to generate them. If not 150, 180, so max to max 20 to 25 tables we are going to do in the project on the oncology project. So ultimately, we have to generate the tables listing figures. So next we have data representation. Data representation. So with the data representation, what we do, we have to make the data easy to open. So make it easily available to the end user. So we have to make the data easily available to end user, so that they can easily open the data. From their side, they can easily open the data. Let's say if I'm sending in the SAS format, They may have SAS, they may not have SAS. So as a SAS programmer, what I have to do, I have to generate the reports in HTML, PDF, RTF, XML, in different files, in different formats. I have to generate the reports. If the report is in HTML, PDF, RTF, you can easily open. These are called machine readable files. Any machine without any software, we can easily open with the link. See, this is the report. This is HTML report. I can easily open like this. It will be opened with a web link, HTML. In that way, we have to present the data. SAS, not only to analyze, that analyzed data we have to easily present. So we have to make the data easily available to end user. That is what presentation of the data. So access, management, analysis, and representation. So this is end-to-end job of the SAS programmers. They have to first read, retrieve the data, then manage as it is required for the analysis. We perform the analysis and we present the data. Let us go with the SAS program. I'll give you simple example. I'll give you one example and I'll give you the task. But before we go further with the SAS program, as you know, SAS program is a programming language. SAS is a programming language. Program is nothing but collection or set of statements, group of statements. In SAS, each and every statement end with semicolon. This is the important rule that you need to know. End with semicolon. Each and every statement end with semicolon. And we have different windows to work with the SAS. With the SAS, we have different windows. So mainly 3 windows are the programming windows. You can see down the window, down the SAS window, you can see, you are able to see now editor log output. Editor log output. In editor, we can write the code, we can write the program, and we can submit the program. In log, we can see the errors, notes, warnings, and syntax. In output, we can generate the result. Your final result will be in the output. Your result will be in output. So we have 3 windows. 3 are the programming windows. 3 are the programming windows. Editor, log, output. So editor is to write the program, submit the program. Log is to check the error. Output will display the final result. So these 2 points that you need to know. We are going to use windows and each and every statement end with semicolon. So mainly SAS has 2 fundamental blocks. You see, whenever raw data is given, SAS main role is to analyze the data and create meaningful report, proper information. But this requires 2 steps. This requires 2 steps. One is whenever raw data is given, first you need to create SAS dataset. The first thing what you need to do, you need to create the SAS dataset. Second thing what you need to do, Once this data set is created, we can play around the data. So we can analyze and produce a report. So SAS program has any program that you take. Any program that you take, it has two blocks, two steps. These two are the fundamental in SAS. These two are fundamental in SAS. Data, proc. Entire SAS, we are going to use these two, data block, proc block. So what data do? Data will read the data, retrieve the data, create SAS dataset. Proc will analyze the data, process the given data, finally produce a result. Finally produce a result. Data is to read and create the data set, but proc is to analyze, process, and produce the required data. You see, when raw data is given, first we use data block to create a data set, proc block to produce a report. Okay, I'm going to explain these two steps with the example. So I'm going to take the example treatment data. Let us assume we are giving the drug to a few subjects. So drug is given to subjects. In the treatment data, we have drug details, subject details means patient details, PTS nothing but patients, and patient showing side effects. It is common. So whenever the new drug is experimented, it is common to expect the side effects. So here I'm using the terminology for this, adverse effects. Side effects also called adverse effects. Okay. So this is the data that I have. So the data is given to you and the task is given to you. I would like to know, you just need to generate either the table or the graph. It can be the graph representation or table representation. You just need to generate a report on, out of given data, how many are serious, how many side effects are serious side effects, how many are non-serious. I just need to know the count. I just need to know the count. Okay, I'm just taking very small data with only 5 observations. I'm just taking only small data with only 5 observations. See, I have Excel given. You can see the adverse effects data. There are so many adverse effects. See, lot of data we have. And also seriousness is given, whether it is yes or no. 145 rows are there. But I'm not going to do with the lengthy data. So the task is given to generate the report on how many are serious, count of serious, count of non-serious. So this is the data given. Patient ID, drug, adverse effect, seriousness. Patient ID, drug is given to the subject, adverse effect that they are facing with fever. They are getting reporting side effect fever. So fever non-serious. With 101, we are increasing the dose of the subject facing rash, non-serious. Again, we are increasing the drug. So this time, patient is suffering from stroke, heart stroke. Patient reported heart stroke, which is serious. 103, 20 mg blood vomiting, which is serious. 104, decreased it to 5 mg back, nausea, non-serious. Okay, so this is my data given. So this is the raw data. I have to generate a report on this data. So the first step, what you need to do whenever the raw data is given, because I cannot directly work on this data. So this data most commonly will be given in the external files like this. So I have to read the data first from this file to SAS. So we create the data set like this. But here I have written the data here. I'm going to create data set with this data. Because whenever raw data is given, we cannot work on directly the data. We need to access, we need to manage it first. So I have to create a SAS data set with the help of data block. So we have two steps here. Raw data will be converted to SAS data set with the help of data block. See here. Data block will start with the keyword data, end with run. Data block will start with the keyword data, end with run. Data will assign the name to the data set. You see, each and every data set identified with some name, right? By, baseball, air. So data, treatment. Input. When you open this data, see, we have variables, column names, date, amount. I have to write these. Input, PTID, drug, advisable seriousness. So out of these four variables, this is character, this is character, this is also character. Only patient ID is numeric. So we have two types of variables, numeric, character. So for character variables, we use dollar. Simple. With dollar, character. Without dollar, number. Numeric. Semicolon. So data will assign the name to the data set. Input will declare the variables. Next, data lines to read the observations. Main thing, we have table 2, rows, columns. Columns will be read using input. Rows will be read using data lines. No need to end these rows with the semicolon. No need to end observations with semicolon. After writing all of them, in the next line, use semicolon. So we can execute this one. Okay. So select the block. This is data block. Data block will only create the data set. It will not produce any output. So we run this. So how to run? There is a running man symbol in the toolbar. Also, tools, run, submit. It is submitted. First, better to check log. See, data set is created with 5 observations, 4 variables. See. So this is your data set. Now data set is created. We have done with the first step. What is second step? We need to analyze the data, process the data based upon the task. My task is to generate the report on how many are serious. I just need to get the count. So to get the count, we use statistical procedure frequency. Like this, we have so many procedures. Let's say if you want to get average, proc means, proc summary, proc univariate. If you want to get the forecast, proc forecast, rank, proc rank. If you want to do the regression analysis, proc regression. Like this, there are so many procedures, but based upon the task. If you want to generate the table, proc tabulate. If you want to generate the graph, proc gchart, proc sgplot. Anything that you have with the proc only. So because proc only will produce the result, will analyze the data. Data block will not analyze, will not produce a result. So data block is to only read the data, create the data set. So proc frequency, which data that you're getting this frequency? Treatment, TRT. Proc frequency data equals to treatment. So I'm using one statement, tables. So we are using frequency for the given data, treatment, tables, variable name, SER. What is the column name? SER. Ultimately, I have to generate the table report on seriousness. How many are serious? How many are not serious? How many are NS? How many are S? So table SER. This is the variable name. Now just run this one. You'll get the table showing how many are non-serious, how many are serious. So non-serious 3, serious 2. If I want to generate the graph, gchart, let's see, I'm going to generate pie chart. We can generate a lot of charts: pie chart, block chart, bar chart, H bar, V bar, horizontal, vertical. So I'm just going with pie 3D. See, 3D graph will be generated showing how many are serious, how many are not serious. Red portion covering 2 serious, blue portion covering 3 non-serious. So like this, ultimately SAS role is to generate. They analyze the data and generate the tables listing figures based upon the requirement. Okay, so this is your data and proc steps. Okay. So any program that you take, you'll have data and proc, but different based upon the given task. Now, let us learn the role of SAS in the process of the clinical trial. First, I'll briefly explain what is clinical trial. As most of you know, clinical trial is nothing but testing the drug, not only drug. I'm just mentioning drug here. It can be device, vaccine, procedures, surgical procedures, anything. So testing the drug on human beings with the main objective of safety and efficacy. Safety and efficacy of the drug. So before we start clinical trial, because directly we cannot experiment the drug on human beings. Directly we cannot experiment the drug on human beings. First step, what we do, we test the drug on animals called preclinical studies, non-clinical studies. Okay. After completion of these preclinical studies, we should submit data, whatever that we collected from the preclinical. We should submit this data to regulatory authorities in order to get the approvals. Approvals for what? Approvals to test the drug further on the human beings. Then the clinical trial will be done. In phase 1, we start with very small group of people, 2, 3. So phase 1, 20 to 80 people will be experimented, 200 to 300. Phase 3, 1000 to 3000 people will be experimented. Okay. So next, after completion of 3, next step is marketing step. We have to release the drug into market, but not directly. Here also we should get approval. Approval from the regulatory authorities. Again, here also we should submit it. Then the drug will be released into market. You can see the process right from preclinical till marketing. So 2 times that we need to approach regulatory authorities for the approvals, right? Pharma companies, whenever they do the research and develop the product, they have to test the drug before they release the drug into market. But we should get approvals. Throughout the process, we should get approvals 2 times. 2 times, ultimately pharma companies submit data to where? Regulatory authorities. The question is, can we submit this directly, this data to FDA, like regulatory authorities? Can we submit this data as it is to regulatory authorities and directly to regulatory authorities? We can say no, because the data is raw data. Data is huge data. Data not in a standard format, not as per the standards. Not as per standards. Generally, regulatory authorities request the pharma companies to follow standards. The standards are CDISC, Clinical Data Interchange Standard Consortium. Throughout the globe, every company should follow these guidelines when they are submitting it to regulatory authorities. When they are submitting data to regulatory authorities, they should make sure the data is as per the CDISC. So SAS will do this process. Ultimately, we cannot directly submit this data. We have to process this data. To process this data, pharma companies depends upon the other companies, like CRO companies. Let's say contract research organization, CRO means Novartis, Paraxel, Icon, Quintiles, like Equia. There are so many companies, Accenture, IT companies, Accenture, TCS, Tech Mahindra, okay, HCL. So there are a lot of companies work as CRO. On behalf of the pharma companies, they process the data using SAS. SAS will do all these. SAS will analyze the data, make the data as per the standards, CDISC standards. So this is what we are going to do in SAS Clinical. Ultimately, we should get approvals from the regulatory authorities. To get approval, ultimately we should submit data. But this data without processing, we cannot submit. So SAS uses here. SAS is used by the CRO companies. CRO can be IT company, MNC companies, and lot of other companies. They use SAS to analyze the data and make it as per the given standards. So we are going to learn here base SAS, advanced SAS. So base and advanced will take approximately 40 to 45 hours. Next, clinical SAS. We are going to learn CDISC standards, SDTM, ADAM, and TLFs. So we are going to more focus on the TLFs and how to generate SDTM datasets, ADAM datasets. So here I'm going to cover two projects. 35 hours it will take, two projects that I'm going to cover. One is oncology, other one is pain management. Okay. So approximately it will take 35 hours. So ultimately we have to generate tables listing figures and we have to work on the SDTM. Starting level, you will not be assigned to generate ADAM. But anyway, we are going to learn ADAM also. So how to generate SDTM datasets, ADAM datasets, TLFs. These are all we are going to do with the project. Okay. The notes will be given for every class. Recording link will be given. Mock interviews will be conducted. Resumes, sample resumes will be provided. And once you prepare with your resume, I'll check the resume. And for the certification, dumps will be provided if you want to go with the certification. SAS 9.4 software will be provided. And interview questions, lot of interview questions will be provided so that it will help you in preparation for the interview. Assignments will be given. Assessments also will be conducted. To know how far you understand the concepts, assessments also will be done. Okay, so these are all the features. Clear, right? So I have done with the demo session. So this is the curriculum and duration, and these are the features of the course. If you have any further questions, please unmute and ask, or you can send me the chat. You can text me in the chat box.